quite a pleasure to be speaking with you, not only as a former parliamentarian, but as an icon in culture and media. And I want to thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you for coming, and lots to talk about. Were you at the ILO conference?
No, I wasn't, no.
Well, I asked that because you are active in the National Trade Union Center.
Yes, normally 2 individuals would be chosen.
Yes.
I think this year the General Secretary, Michael Anisette, and the first Vice President, Mr. Ronald Sutherland, would have gone.
Yes, Michael Anisette was our guest yesterday.
Oh, is that so?
Afternoon, and he's aware that you are here this morning. So we had an extensive discussion on these ILO meetings, and he also was very happy to talk a bit about the infrastructure in Geneva for the convenience of the citizens and visitors to the great city, and believes that when you have the opportunity to travel, you must travel with eyes wide open.
Indeed.
To see how other countries, cities, countries, federations, how they respond to challenges in their own communities.
Indeed.
Yes.
I totally agree with that.
So what is happening at the All Trinidad General Workers' Trade Union?
Well, at this point in time, we are engaged in, I will use the word struggle, to ensure that the visa package and the distribution of the leases and lands to the ex-colony workers are expedited. We have engaged...
No, that is a big word there, expedited, because I don't know, it's been so long.
It's been 10 years actually.
Yes.
And even long before my time.
Yes.
But what I did when I became President General of the All Trinidad, I would have taken the decision that I believed that the All Trinidad owed a moral responsibility and that we had a residual interest in the affairs of the ex-colony workers. And I made it my duty to ensure as far as possible that these leases and lands were actually given out. And that is the struggle that I'm engaged in at this point in time.
Yes. So you are seeing a conclusion?
I think so. I would have spoken to many ministers of government, and I must thank one minister in particular, Minister Dr. Ronald Munilal, who were very cordial, and he understood many of the points that I would have raised, and he has given me the assurance that he himself will take a personal interest in ensuring that these lands are finally delivered after 10 years.
Well, I guess Minister Munilal is the line minister for the EMBD.
Yes, he is, yes.
And
yes.
the EMBD is charged with the responsibility
of developing the residential lots and things like that.
Yes.
And Minister Nirvan Maharaj also, I would have been in discussion with him, and he too understands that, the time has come. And I think what we would have experienced was a situation where many ministers, I believe, because of course a minister can't know every single thing that's happening in the agencies below him. I think many of these ministers were deliberately or maybe inadvertently misled by many of the officials in some of these state agencies with their own agendas. And when I looked and I did my own investigation into Colony Limited, what I found was a massive fiasco taking place, as I said before. I found a situation where out of, let's say, 7,246 persons who would have applied for lands for the 2-acre plots, after 10 years, only 1,339 leases were delivered. And the same thing occurred with the residential lots, 7,400 and something individuals, and you have a situation where after 10 years, 1,039 leases delivered. And I believe this was a terrible injustice being perpetuated upon the ex-colony workers. And in my discussions with the ministers, I kept reinforcing the point that these are the people upon whose backs the government would have stood to be propelled into power. And these are the individuals who would have labored in the vineyards, as I would have always said, for so many years. I mean, these are individuals who never depended on political patronage or handouts, but who, if they had to, would have planted a kitchen garden and put the produce on a table at the side of the road in order to supplement their income and make a living. And these individuals should not be treated as second-class citizens. And my duty, and I saw it as my responsibility, to ensure that these individuals were given back the dignity and the rights that they deserved as first-class citizens of this nation. And I mean, as I said before, I am pleased that I'm getting a very positive response now from the government. Having said that, I mean, I also made a call, and I do believe that this should be done, that the chairman of Caroni Limited, Mr. Jerry Hospitalis, I think his appointment should be immediately revoked, together with the rest of the board, who for 10 years would have miserably failed, if not deliberately, miserably failed the ex-Caroni workers, and is also in breach of the D.L. Singh judgment, a court order with regard to these 2 acre plots and residential lots.
So, is revocation the ultimate disciplinary action as a practicing lawyer and understanding the D.L. Singh position on the matter? Is there more to be anticipated? Shouldn't we be serious about disciplinary action against people who breach the public trust?
I think we should. When I looked at the D.L. Singh judgment and the orders that was given, and when I looked at the situation...
I think he was talking about months, not 10 years, right?
I have the order in front of me.
Yes.
And in fact, he did in fact say that he understands that the government has the power and the capacity to expedite the process if it so desires. And he went on to say that he found that the promise to the former sugar workers has not been kept, and that their legitimate expectation has been and is being frustrated by a lack of reasonable, expeditious action on the part of the government. Now, he would have made this judgment in 2007, and we are looking at 2013, and to date, the ex-Caroni workers are still suffering.
I remember, Mr. Maharaj interviewing the Minister of Agriculture who is involved in this package to the workers, and suggesting to him that before you close down Caroni Limited, you've got to have what you are offering the workers. You must be able to implement it immediately. So if you're offering them lands, they must have access to the lands.
Agreed.
So yes, and I think that was the major problem. This great anxiety on the part of the Patrick Manning administration to close down Caroni Limited, to send the workers away, and to say to the nation, we've given them the best possible package, but 10 years later and there's no delivery?
10 years later, and Mr. Hanuman, what I think is extremely sad is I took a tour of Felicity 2 weeks ago, and what I saw made me shudder in disbelief. I saw flooding, main drains clogged. I actually saw a drain passing through land with sewage in it. A total lack of infrastructure, lack of irrigation, lack of access roads, lack of bridges. And I actually saw ex-Caroni workers who were using an ordinary hoe in an attempt to build a drain across 2 acres of land. And the D.L. Singh judgment specifically stated that with regard to the 2 acre plots and the residential lots, all infrastructure had to be in place before these lands were delivered unto these people. And it was shocking to me to see the extent to which these people were suffering. I looked at the Felicity Phase 1 and 2 areas, and I took a decision then that I will not rest. I will not rest until every single ex-Caroni worker who is supposed to get a 2 acre plot or a residential lot is given their just due. And it's not a gift. It's their legal right.
It's an entitlement.
By a court judgment.
But it seems to me that the old Trinidad had rested for a while.
Well, I don't want to go into that dimension. What I would say is that when I took over, I took a conscious decision that the ex-Caroni workers had to be settled. I know there are a lot of politics involved in many of the decisions taken at the level of statutory bodies and state agencies. And when you mentioned before about the question of sanctions, I know that perhaps the Caroni board perhaps the board was acting on political decisions. But I will not tolerate that. And I think the good thing now is that the old Trinidad is you don't only have a President General, you also have an attorney at law, with access to other attorneys of laws who are willing to do what is necessary to ensure that this judgment is finally delivered to the ex-colony workers.
I don't accept that a member of a board will say that my hands are tied. The hands of board members are tied because of political direction, because if I do not agree with political direction and political interference, then I leave.
I agree with you totally. I totally agree with you, because as you would know, I myself would have resigned from a particular board after serving 1 year. And I did it because there came a time when I could no longer adhere to the collective responsibility that was needed when I disagreed with many decisions that was taking place. And that is why I'm saying the chairman of Caroni Limited and the board members of Caroni Limited must be revoked, and that board must be disbanded. I am stringent in my call for that. And the old Trinidad will not rest until those who were there at the advent of the shutdown of the sugar industry, and they are still there today, and they have miserably failed the ex-colony workers. And I think it's a travesty that the past regime and this government has allowed them to remain there. I mean, I make no apologies for saying that.
Do you have cases, and you must have, where settling this issue doesn't have appeal to some of the workers anymore?
I think many workers have become extremely frustrated.
Yeah.
I think after 10 years, even for example, the daily paid workers, the sums of money that they may have received with the visa package, which they would have used to invest in the lands at that point in time, that money has long been dissipated. I think there's a sense of frustration, total frustration, and an anger. There's an anger there. But again, because of certain circumstances, that anger may not express itself in certain ways. But having toured Felicity and looked at different areas and spoken to hundreds of ex-colony workers who continuously come to the union seeking help, I know that there's a subtle build-up of frustration that is overwhelming. And it's a sad thing indeed,
Yes, indeed. Mr. Maharaj, we've got to take a break now for the news at 7 o'clock, and we'll continue our discussion with you thereafter.
Thank you.
On State of the Nation Heritage Radio 101.7 FM.
Honey, I have no socks and no underwear. You wash yet?
No, waiting on a full load.
A full load?
Yes, hon. It's water we need. And when you wash small loads of clothes, you waste water. So from now on, I'm only going to wash when I have a large...
Here.
Honey, what you...
This is my dirty football uniforms I've been hiding whole week. Load full yet?
Don't waste water when doing your laundry. Only wash large loads. Water. Use only what you need. A message from the Water and Sewage Authority.
Been there, did that. Now try the new hot destination, Punta Cana. Non-stop flights in July and August. All-inclusive, no visa required. Kids stay free at some resorts. Call Amral's Travel today. 665-3383. Yes, that's 665-3383.
Turn up your flavor with American Classic Cola. The bold and suspension comes to the mind any day, anytime. I need a bold taste that's so fine, yeah. I'm drinking American Classic Cola. American Classic Cola. American Classic Cola. New bottle, more new taste. Can't taste the difference? Why pay the difference?
This is Heritage Radio 101.7 FM, the signal of change.
News is next from the newsroom of Heritage Radio 101.7 FM.
Good morning, this is the news to 7 a.m. on Heritage Radio 101.7 FM, brought to you by Petrogen. In the headlines and local news, BAD says he will hand over all electronic devices to the police as long as proper procedures are in place. A call for a recount of the recent Police Social and Welfare Association election. Regionally, Haiti seeks to revive agriculture through Venezuela Food for Fuel deal. Internationally, Texas executes 500th person since resuming the death penalty. And in sports, the New Soccer Warriors coach looking for good mix of players for CONCACAF Gold Cup. We'll have the details after this word from our sponsor.
Our constant motion. A team of people that looks at the world differently, that believes the future is sound, and conveys this at the forefront. Getting things done. Scoring one for our team. Taking a stand. And netting rewards throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Petrogen, proudly supporting sports, culture, and communities.
Now with the news in detail, I am Rory Hepperstone. Attorney General Anand Logan said he will hand over all electronic devices to the police as long as there are proper procedures in place. He said he handed over the devices to his attorneys, Pamela Elder and Larry Lalla, with instructions to give them to the police. He said, however, when his attorneys met with him, they expressed some reservations about the process and protocol.
From what Ms. Elder explained to me, her concern was to ensure the safety and integrity of the equipment once it is handed over to the police, to prevent the possibility of the device being corrupted or in any way interfered with or tampered with. And I think that's quite frankly a very legitimate concern, because this is a novel situation where we are not suspects in a criminal investigation but are voluntarily cooperating.
Mr. Logan reiterated that he has no problem handing over his personal devices to assist in the investigation. He clarified that they are not suspects and will fully cooperate to get to the bottom of what he describes as a political conspiracy.
Absolutely, there is no question about not handing over or not cooperating. We have every reason to cooperate because we have nothing to hide in this matter. But having said that, I respect the right of Ms. Elder as the legal advisor and representative to seek her client's interest and to ensure they, as the police service, also operate within the parameters of the law. What we do here will set a precedent for anyone else in the future, and we therefore have to be careful that we do it the right way and do it the proper way.
However, Attorney at Law Robin Montano believes the police is incapable of handling the investigation into the Section 34 email scandal. Mr. Montano, who is representing Guy Griffith in this matter, said his client is fully cooperating, but is yet to receive any feedback from the police.
I learned that the Prime Minister has not handed over her devices. And I told DCP Richardson yesterday, I said there has to be a level playing field. You either hand back my devices or you take everybody's, including Dr. Rowley's. And he said, oh, there will be a level playing field. I said, no. Not that there will be. There has to be now a level playing field, and there will not be a level playing field if you don't hand back my devices and you don't get the devices from the other people.
That was Attorney at Law Robin Montano. And the call has been made for a recount of the recent Police Social and Welfare Association election. It was called for by Police PRO Sergeant Wayne Meister, who for presidency of the election but placed third. Speaking with Heritage Radio, he said there were many discrepancies with the process.
My decision was influenced by a lot of reports that was made to us as it relates to some discrepancies in the process. For example, we had persons who were legitimate members of the association and they weren't allowed to vote. Their name didn't appear on the voters list. That was just one. And some other issues where persons whose name appeared 3 times on the list, the whole aspect of police officers being allowed to vote in any polling station would have opened the whole aspect of for lack of transparency. So as a result, to alleviate fears, we ordered a recount to ensure that the process was above all.
Sergeant Maestro said the purpose of the recount is to challenge the process.
As I told persons, the whole aspect of the recount is not necessary for the whole aspect of my chances of getting better in terms of getting more votes, but it's to actually challenge the process and to identify some of the flaws that took place within the election. So that is mainly the main reason for the initiation of the recount.
The recount is expected to begin at 10 a.m. on Friday and should be completed by the afternoon. And in regional news, Haiti's government is seeking to boost the agriculture sector through an agreement that would allow the impoverished Caribbean country to invest funds out of Venezuela for fuel imports in massive food production projects and pay part of the fuel bills, with food exports officials say. In 2005, then Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez initiated the Petro-Caribbean Agreement that allowed Latin American and Caribbean member countries to pay for 60% of the oil immediately, while the remaining 40% is financed at 1% interest rate over 25 years. Haitian President Michel Martelly and Prime Minister Laurent Lamothe have engaged in talks with the new Venezuelan leadership to allow Haiti to become part of a Food for Oil program, already negotiated by some other Petro-Caribbean members such as Guyana. And in international news, the U.S. state of Texas has executed its 500th prisoner since it reinstated the death penalty in 1982. Kimberly McCarthy, 52, who was convicted of killing her neighbor in 1997, was given a lethal injection on Wednesday evening. She was also the first woman executed in the U.S. for nearly 3 years. Texas is one of 32 states that still have the death penalty, but it carries out the most executions. Since the U.S. Supreme Court allowed capital punishment to resume in 1976, 40% of all executions have taken place in the state. Despite growing opposition to the death penalty worldwide, Texans support it. A poll by the University of Texas and the Texas Tribune last year found 73% of voters backed the punishment. Officials said that for them, the state's 500th execution was no different to any other. And in sports news, new TNT national coach Stephen Hart is searching for the best combination of players to field for the CONCACAF Gold Cup. Former Canada national coach is preparing Trinidad and Tobago for the Gold Cup, the region's premier football competition, which runs from July 8th to 28th in the United States. Trinidad and Tobago opened the competition in New Jersey against El Salvador on July 10th, before playing Haiti on July 12th and Honduras on July 15th. We'll return with the headlines after this word from our sponsor.
Our constant motion. A team of people that looks at the world differently, but believes the future is sound and conveys this at the forefront. Getting things done, scoring one for our team, taking a stand, and netting rewards throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Petrotrin, proudly supporting sports, culture, and communities.
Now recapping the headlines in local news, the AG said it will hand over all electronic devices to the police as long as proper procedures are in place. A call for a recount of the recent Police, Social and Welfare Association election. Regionally, Haiti seeks to revive agriculture through Venezuela Food for Fuel deal. Internationally, Texas executes 500 person since resuming the death penalty. And in sports, the new Soccer Warriors coach looking for good mix of players for the CONCACAF Gold Cup. That was the news at 7 a.m. Join us at 8 a.m. for another newscast.
News on Heritage Radio 101.7 FM. Every hour on the hour. Local, regional and international. Heritage Radio 101.7 FM. Accurate and reliable.
It is now 10 minutes after 7 o'clock. Welcome to State of the Nation. This is the second hour, and with me, the President General of the All Trinidad Union, the All Trinidad General Workers Trade Union, Mr. Nirvan Maharaj. Trade unions represent their members. Mr. Maharaj has taken the responsibility to represent former members. They are no longer there. There's
no longer financial.
Sugar industry. They are ex-Caroni workers, but there is a moral responsibility in the thinking of Mr. Nirvan Maharaj. These workers had served not only the sugar industry but the union over many years.
Indeed.
Yes.
I mean, we could actually say that the foundation of the union would be these workers.
Yes.
Whose sweat and tears would be the ones who would have ensured a union be there in the first place.
Yes. Yes. I want to ask you, a little hazy on this particular matter, but there was an incentive offered jointly by the Agricultural Development Bank and the Unit Trust Corporation, an investment that appeared to be very attractive at the time when the workers were being separated. You must be familiar with that.
The Sweetener Loan Initiative,
yes.
I think when the visa package was offered,
yes,
the Unit Trust Corporation, together with the ADB, would have offered the Sweetener Loan, where make your visa package work for you.
Yes.
I think 5,600 ex-Caroni workers would have taken the opportunity. Unfortunately, after 6 years, these workers would have received letters indicating that the funds did not do as well as it should have, and that the loans that they would have taken from ADB, that the interest that would have been accumulated would have been used to pay off the premiums of the loan. From a legal perspective, I think it would be a very long and daunting task for these workers to really engage the process of attempting to address this situation. When I looked at it, I do believe that there may have been what I would term a legal con, or maybe some misrepresentation along the way. I do think that this issue is really one of having a political will to deal with the issue, maybe in the same vein that we would have dealt with CLICO and HCU. There are many workers who would have invested the monies in the hope of gaining a profit at the end of the 6 years, which could then be invested for their future and the future of their children. Many of these workers were disappointed. And when I spoke to the ex-Caroni Farmers Group, members who have taken up this issue and have been agitating over the past few years for this issue to be settled by the government, I told them, and I think they agree with me, that it's really a political issue. It's an issue of political will, where the government must take the necessary steps to ensure that these workers get back at least some compensation based on an expectation that they would have had with regard to this investment. And we have been in discussion with the Minister of Housing and the Minister of Food Production, and both have indicated that the government is at present looking at the possibility of returning the management fee, which was 2%, and I think the total management fee came up to about $10 million that the workers would have paid to ADB to process the loans, and the possibility of maybe some other type of compensation. But those talks are still in the works.
Well, unlike CLICO and HCU, the two bodies involved here are state agencies, the Agricultural Development Bank and the Unit Trust Corporation, complaining now of big liquidity problems, so they've got the money.
Yes, I think they do. Yes, but I think it's a moral issue. I'll tell you why. I mean, the visa package came out, and immediately after you have these huge advertisements about make your money work for you. And I mean, the 5,600 ex-Caroni workers took part, and today these people are complaining that what was told to them did not materialize, and it needs to be looked at.
Well, absolutely, and Was there a provision that, and I don't think there was myself. I remember reading the advertisements. I remember interviewing people. The chairman, from my memory, of the ADB was also the chairman of the Unit Trust Corporation.
I believe so.
And a very respected banker in the country. So in terms of integrity, in terms of track record, in terms of the two organizations that came together to offer an incentive, I don't think anybody would have stopped for a moment to consider whether there were any hidden features in the offer.
Indeed. I mean, I tend to be a bit, at this point in time, I tend to be a bit reserved in going into detailed discussion on that issue, because I know that we are in talks at this point in time.
Yes. Yes, all right. So I'm glad that we talked about it to the extent that
we touched on it.
To the extent that you can. Now, the union itself, have you been recovering from the loss of 75,000 members?
No, it's about 10,000 members.
Sorry, yes.
With the closure of Colony Limited. We have been making very valiant efforts. We have been attempting to increase our membership base and to put the union on a sound financial footing. It's not an easy task. It's actually a very daunting task. And I think one of the difficulties that I myself would have faced is that even before my time, those who were there before me would have enjoyed interest from an investment in one of the companies that would have folded up. When I took office, at the time that I took office in June 2012, the interest from that investment was no longer there. And so I'm basically operating or attempting to operate at a level where I'm very, very stringent and very, very circumspect when it comes to spending money and things like that. I have to be very careful, you see. But I think it augurs well for us. We have done a lot of work in an attempt to rebuild the membership base. We have a number of applications before the certification board, and there are a number of people, many persons who are joining the union on an individual basis. So I think the future augurs well for us.
Did I hear you in a speech to your membership make a distinction, and I'm raising this in respect of residents, a distinction between the work, the mandate of the All Trinidad General Workers' Trade Union and the United National Congress that is headquartered there?
Well, I made a statement, yes, and I indicated to the national community that Renzi Complex is owned by the All Trinidad General Workers' Trade Union, and that the United National Congress is simply a tenant of the All Trinidad. The headquarters of the UNC being there, of course, that's up to the party, but the party would actually rent office space from us. And of course, I don't want to dispel the historical dynamics of the past. I mean, it's a fact that the President General of the Union, who at one time the leader of the United National Congress and leader of the opposition and Prime Minister, of course. So there is a relationship in terms of that historical past. When I took office, however, I indicated to my membership and to my executive that I thought the time had come for the union to walk along a particular pathway, one of objectivity and neutrality at this point in time. I did not want to become too involved in the politics of the day, simply because my concern was the rebuilding of the All Trinidad. Yes, the party had its headquarters there, and yes, there was a relationship in the past, but I had to see about the affairs of the union, and we were not being held by anyone. We had to do what we had to do by ourselves, and continue to do so. Yes.
You're listening to State of the Nation on Heritage Radio 101.7 FM. You also serve the National Trade Union Center.
Yes.
You're
second
the
vice president.
second
yes.
vice president. Takes a lot of your time?
It does, yeah. At times, like I said before, at times, it could be very daunting, but it's exciting, it's interesting when you deal with people, when you serve people. And it's really an enjoyable thing when every single day you leave your office, you know that you would have assisted someone. I mean, we sit at the RNC complex, and every single day there are persons coming there for help, and we help as best as we can. From the level, of course, of NATUC and the All Trinidad level, yes.
Were you at Pfizer-Bad?
I was, yes. I actually spoke on the platform there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
I represented NATUC, was a NATUC speaker there.
So you're part of a demonstration being planned to raise issues that are of concern to the labor fraternity.
Why did I suspect that you would be asking me that question? Yes, there's a march being planned for the 5th of July, I believe. I want to make it very clear, however, that the All Trinidad Rural Workers Trade Union, because of what I've heard in the media, will not be taking part in that march. I do not intend at this point in time to march side by side with the People's National Movement or any official from the People's National Movement, especially in light of the fact that the People's National Movement is still to explain to the national community and to my former membership about the shutdown of the sugar industry, about the fact that they would have appealed the DLC judgment in a bid not to adhere to the visa package. There are many issues that I could call which the People's National Movement have failed to address, and I cannot in all good conscience march with them. I must be accountable to my people and what my people would have experienced. And when I say my people, I'm talking about my membership and former membership, what they would have experienced since the 1950s. In good conscience, I can't. Not at this point in time. I'm not saying in the future, if I see particular changes taking place, I would not be willing to, in the interest of the nation. But there are too many unanswered questions with regard to the PNM and its treatment of many persons south of the Caroni Bridge, and I make no apologies in saying that.
And you've communicated the position of the union to
Comrade
Roger and company.
I have, through my first vice president, Mr. John Jaglal, who in a joint trade union movement would have indicated to the J2UM. And of course, there's no personality conflict here. It's simply my own decision. We would have communicated to them that we will not march hand in hand with the PNM, not after what has been done to our membership. No.
You mentioned John Jaglal. I can see him everywhere. Quite a record of representation.
I think he's actually at this point in time the longest serving member of the union. He would have been part of the union officially on the executive for almost 30 years. But I think he would have been a member of the union for 52 years because he would have started to work in the sugar industry, I believe, at the age of 15, I believe. Yeah. John Jaglal, he's an icon in the sugar industry and in the All Trinidad Rural Workers Trade Union.
Yes.
He has served long and he has served well, and I look forward to him serving for much more time.
Yes. The founder of the union, Adrian Kola Rienzi, was recognized this year as part of the nation's 50th independence anniversary celebrations as a national icon.
Yes. I think Rienzi would not only be a national icon, but Rienzi would have been the foundation upon which the trade union movement would have been built. And that is not to take away from any other individuals. Tuval Uriah Buzz Butler would have served the nation well in terms of labor, and he is looked upon as the father of trade unionism. But I do think, and I will say it openly, I do think that we must have two fathers of trade unionism in Trinidad and Tobago. Tuval Uriah Buzz Butler would have served as a martyred leader in hiding and in prison, while Rienzi would have been the one to really engage in the logistics of the development of the trade union movement and the organization of the movement, more so the OWTU and the All Trinidad at the same time. I think we must recognize him as the only individual to be president of both unions at the same time. He would have served well. And for whatever reasons, and I don't want to get into that, but for whatever reasons, I don't think that he would have been given the recognition that he so deserved.
You're listening to State of the Nation on Heritage Radio 101.7 FM. Mr. Maharaj, there are some anxious people wanting to speak with you, if that's okay.
That's fine with me.
The
That's
lines,
fine with me.
628-3896, 628-4846. The lines are open, and we'll be taking your calls while I continue to talk with Nirvan Maharaj about matters of the Old Trinidad, matters of labor, and other matters. As a matter of fact, there is something that I really want to talk to you about, not running away from the current discussion that we have, but before leaving this morning, I'd like to spend some time with you on this issue. You were trained as a trainer by the Ministry of Community Development and Gender Affairs for the dissemination of information for the defining of masculine excellence.
Yes, indeed.
Program. Now, I have a deep interest on this whole question of that concerns a lot of people in respect of gender issues and young males.
Indeed, at that time, I would have been a teacher at Hillview College.
Yes.
And several teachers throughout the nation, together with other individuals, were chosen to be trained by the ministry in going out to the different communities and the different schools in order to engage young men, engage them in an understanding of what it meant to be a male. That being a man did not mean you had to smoke or drink or curse. Being a man did not mean that you had to treat your women folk in a particular way as though they were less, as though they were possessions. Being a man did not mean you had to be afraid to show emotions and feelings. Being a man did not mean that you should be afraid to hug your mother or to understand the important role that your mother would have played in your development. And I think it was one of the most interesting times for me, because going out to the communities, I would have seen so many young men who, and again at the risk of being controversial, so many young men who would have become so enmeshed in a particular American ghetto culture, and who believe that wearing their pants below their waist or below their crotch, or with a cap turned around, or acting and behaving in a particular way made them a man. Our job was to go out there and show them that men, or manhood, was about responsibility, was about action, was about willing to face the consequences of your actions. That your responsibility was the key, and communication and compromise was the key to manhood.
Heritage Radio 101.7 FM, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Good morning to your guest.
Morning.
Good morning.
I listen, I hear, and I see what's happening in the country, what has been happening in my humble estimation. Politicians, both sides of the fence, they seem to concentrate on the votes that they can win and they can keep. And those that they already have or they can't have, they neglect them. In the case of the PNM, Lavanti, Vitam, we already have that. We don't have to do nothing again for them. Bapo, Pinar, we can't get them. Don't worry about doing nothing for them either. Let us do what we can for those who we want to keep. And the closure of Carney was one of the ways of keeping those you want to keep because of race politics. Now, on the next side of the fence, you have a People's Partnership government. People who have been there, who knows the plight of the sugar workers. They are being traumatized. You are saying that they're frustrated. I'll say they are traumatized. And what is happening is the same situation. This government they wouldn't pay much attention to them because they don't have to win them anymore. No matter what they do, they have them in the bag. What do? They walk in the Lavati, where they feel they could win some people there. They go in the Eastern Square, where they could win some people there. And I think the formula, the answer to getting the respect, is to let them know, don't take us for granted. We could do what happened in 1971. We could refuse to go to the polls if even we don't vote for the opposition. Thank you very much, sir.
I think well said. I don't know if there's need for me to add anything to that. Although there's one thing I would say is that having engaged several ministers of government in discussion, I made it very clear to them that if we could find $300 million for the Columbia Orange program, which was very important, if we could find $90 million for Carnival or $10 million.
No, the 300 was additionally.
Additional?
Yes.
If we could find $90 million for Carnival, $10 million for the development of a CD, if Colony Limited could get $340 million, I think the time has come for the government to find the money to expedite the process for the ex-colony workers. The response I got was, like I said, was very, very good, and I'm very positive.
Heritage Radio, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Mr. Hans Hanumanishing. Peace, love, and justice to you and to your guests there.
Thank you.
I just want to go a little off course, but Mr. Maharaj is his name?
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks. I enjoyed hearing your contributions this morning. Just one thing that struck me, and that was recently when Mrs. Thatcher died, and there was a lot of reminiscing the days of the coal mine and how she disemboweled the coal mine and the venom that still remains with people in the north there, of destroying the whole kind of industry. And that reminded me very much of what happened with the in terms of the cane workers in Trinidad. But Mr. Hanuman Singh, I just wanted really to call you. I've been trying all morning just to thanks very much for your playing that address by Dr. Tiwari and Dr. Williams. I thought it was extremely sober, thoughtful, very, very informative, and of course there were some very nice insights that Dr. Tiwari brought on. I say I must thank you very much for that. In another context, I will talk to you about the Eric Williams Memorial Lecture, and I'll send you a little piece of correspondence I have. Is your address 104 Woodford Street?
That's correct, sir.
Okay, I'll send it to you.
But the dial is 101.7. But thank you very much, and we will be repeating that address by Dr. Tiwari.
Yeah, I thought it was good. It was very, so it was not political and not, of course, it was very, well, academic in the sense then you could see the university lecturing part in it.
Well, our Minister of Planning and Sustainable Development is a scholar. He's a literary man. He's a patriot. Put all of these things together and you got a fantastic understanding and appreciation of the role, the contribution and the deficiencies of Eric Williams.
Yes, and with notwithstanding those attributes of Dr. Tiwari, that doesn't mean I don't have my quarrels with him, and particularly now as we talk about Mr. Maharaj in terms of land and land use. And my own take is that the government actually removed the whole of Caroni and the 100,000 acres of land from the aspect of agriculture and fit them into a sort of business arrangement, which facilitated their doing a lot of things as a business up with Caroni Limited. But this is only the thought of a man from the rum shop.
Caroni rum? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, Heritage Radio 101.7 FM. There's an announcement recently of 5,000 acres of lands under agricultural production, vegetables, I believe.
I don't know if you are speaking of the Green Initiative, is it?
I think so, yes.
But I think it's a program that Caroni Limited was attempting to implement. I, however, from a theoretical perspective, I don't have a difficulty with it. But from practical implementation, there are many logistics that needs to be worked out. For example, I don't expect the Green Initiative to rent the 2 acres of land from the ex-colony worker for a few $100s per year. And I'm calling on all ex-colony workers to be very careful of the Green Initiative until the union has a chance to look at it. Because we need to ensure that the ex-worker benefits in terms of the profits made, the rental on the land. And I also said to them, if colony cannot find the money to develop the lands as per the Dialsing judgment, how then can colony seek to develop the lands with the Green Initiative? So you are developing the lands for the Green Initiative program, but you can't develop it for the Dialsing judgment and for the ex-worker. So theoretically, very good. Practically, we need to look at it again.
Heritage Radio 101.7 FM, 628-4846, 628-3896. Shall I go back to that question about masculinity?
Oh, yes. We were attempting to ensure that, or as far as possible, to begin the process of educating the young males in society about what it means to be a man, or what that masculinity is not about rough and gruff. It's about an understanding, it's about responsibility, it's about compromise, it's about emotion and feelings also. Very often in our culture, we have a tendency to believe that being a man is about the rum shop. We were attempting
the
to
guy who
dispel
called
that.
just now said he was calling from the rum shop. That's a manner of speaking. He's not in any rum shop. Heritage Radio, welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I hear Kamala speak Monday about a piece of land for Rienzi. Somewhere behind Rienzi.
A piece of land? Oh, no, I think it was actually the former President General who said that.
Rostonio behind there, so I was wondering if the union getting housing.
No, actually what happened, I think it's an excellent question that I need to explain in order to dispel any misconception that persons may have. Since 1991 and even before that, the union would have been occupying a piece of land behind Renzi complex where it would have been engaged in an exhibition, an agricultural exhibition, and where you had the YTEP training taking place, and where the union itself engaged in training persons in agriculture. And the lands were actually approved by Colony Limited for the union, I think in 1991, but to date we have been waiting for a lease. So if it was said on the platform that the union would be granted a lease for those lands that we have been waiting for almost 20-something years, I would be extremely happy.
Yes.
Very, very happy.
Yeah. Heritage Radio 101.7 FM. And back to the issue of... You got a call? Yes. Okay. So we'll take the call and then my question. Welcome.
Dr. Hans Hanuman Singh. And to your guest, a pleasant good morning and to this
Good morning. Good morning to you.
No, I want to go out of the box a little this morning.
That's a grow box? That's a grow box?
What, sir?
The grow box?
Listen to this. You remember when Mr. Franklin Khan was on your program?
Yes, last week.
Right. Now, mistakes are always being made by people. For example, when you ask Mr. Franklin Khan on your program, you asked him a question. One of your questions was, who were the founders of the PNM? He called names. But being alive still today is Mr. Kamaluddin Mohammed. There is evidence, I believe, to prove Mr. Kamaluddin Mohammed Church was there since before PNM existence. So he proved no respect for a viable politician who have proven to this nation of Trinidad and Tobago and to the world his contribution was mighty.
He was already a county councillor.
Yeah, but what happened now, Mr. Franklin Khan, when he was calling the names of people who was responsible for bringing forth the PNM regime, he never mentioned this man. And this man is alive, so it come like being alive and it's disrespectful to that gentleman. Now, coming back to this present morning here, why at the time others who existed in this gentleman's position did not do their job at that present time. You know, they were in your position too, sir, right? But ideas continue to get corroded. I believe what people have to do, always be serious about life and what really happening in the present. American style have taken over Caroni, and and continuously it's happening daily, and nobody is doing anything about it, and nobody recognizing that, and they ain't mentioning that. I believe in the early years, it had a main reason for signing a treaty. I believe that treaty has to be signed again to solve problems. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Heritage Radio, good morning.
Sir, good morning.
Morning.
I would like to ask, first of all, I must compliment you a million times for that wonderful speech yesterday by Dr. Tiwari.
Well, you must compliment Dr. Tiwari.
Well, I'm complimenting you for being on, but I've already written him this morning already.
Okay, all right.
Sir, my father was the founder of TICFA, Trinidad and Tobago Farmers Union, and TICFA used to have a building on Sutton Street near Irving Park, which I'm sure you know very well.
Yes, which is no longer there. It was a huge building, yes.
My father was founder, Dave Nirvan Maharaj, sometimes called. And I would like Mr. Maharaj to tell us what really happened to TICFA building.
Well, I have absolutely no idea about that. I don't know.
Mr. Maharaj represents sugar workers, or former sugar workers, not cane farmers.
I understand that, but it was all correlated, although because that building had an illustrious past.
Yeah.
It used to be an auto dealership many years when I grew up in San Fernando.
Yes.
But for some reason, the farmers and the Cane Farmers Association, or the cane farmers, and they lost the building. It'd be interesting to know what actually happened to the building.
No, I agree with you, and I'll ask Mr. Tambi.
Tambi, yes, that's the individual, yes.
Okay, sir. Again, I thank you, Dr. Hanuman.
Thank you.
Take it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Heritage Radio, 101.7 FM. And back to that question, you know, our girls have been excelling. They've been doing very well. I remember Mr. Pandey, when he was Prime Minister, saying at a little social that the head of AMOCO, as it existed then, said, when they advertise for jobs, engineering, whatever types of jobs, and they shortlisted, there were more girls being shortlisted for engineering jobs than boys. Now that's great that our girls are doing well, but the expectation is that the boys will also do well, but they are lagging behind. That must be of concern to you, Mr. Maharaj.
It has always been, even as a teacher at Hillview College, and though we would have excelled in academia, I still saw many young men who would have fallen by the wayside. And there were some very intelligent young men who fell by the wayside. And very often I wondered, and I don't want to get into a detailed discussion, but I sometimes wonder if the education system itself, how it was designed, in many instances geared towards simply the passing of an exam and students being forced to learn by rote, whether this in itself would have caused many young intelligent boys at, let's say, my school, for example, where I taught, to fall by the wayside for a lack of boredom or interest, the lack of the stimulation of the mind, the lack of critical thinking, the lack of analysis. So I've always wondered whether the education system itself could be responsible for that. And again, of course, you have the peer pressure, you have the influence, I said, of certain types of cultural, behavioral patterns emerging out of metropolitan nations that would no doubt have affected our own young men and would have undermined the culture that we ourselves would have sought to instill in them. External pressure is, it's a very, very terrible thing indeed. I saw it with my own eyes, yes.
Yes. Heritage Radio 101.7 FM. Is there some kind of contact, continuing relationship with former President General Basdeo Pandey and the Union at this time?
Indeed, Mr. Pandey has an office at Regency Complex still. And I made it very clear that if there was one individual who was actually deserving of being at ANC complex regardless of the consequences, it was Mr. Pandey. And as long as I'm there, I would say it openly, as long as I'm there, Mr. Pandey will have an office at ANC complex. He deserves that, and he deserves no less than that. And I speak with him on occasions, yes. Sometimes he's there on a Wednesday. You have a lot of persons coming to see him still. Going into his office and sitting and speaking with him and coming back out feeling alive and refreshed.
So he still has
he's there.
magic.
Oh yes, at the age of 80, I think Mr. Pandey, at the age of 80, he looks like 60 and behaves like 40.
Yes. Now, let's also talk as we come to the closing moments of our program, but we go to the line first. Welcome.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
Since 1990, my job has involved visiting schools, primary and secondary schools. And from that, together with my research in education, I can conclude that for there to be better performance on the part of boys, there needs to be at the secondary level single-sex schools. I am totally convinced of that. As a matter of fact, some gentleman wrote a book, How Boys Learn Differently to Girls. In addition, there are distractions that the general public wouldn't know about. I mean, in some schools there's a certain culture where people moving around like husband and wife and their territorial boundaries and so on. And we need this single-sex approach here for secondary schools. Not to say that there will not be social interactions within the group. This can take place under supervised conditions. And I think that is the way to go if we want to reduce violence and to improve learning. In closing, yesterday when I called in to Mr. Rambachan, you asked about the pond in Montrose.
Yes.
And Mr. Rambachan said that it was filled up and so on. But he failed to mention that it was after over 13 years of serious lobbying on my part that this came about. And also that Mr. Rambachan himself insulted me and humiliated me and said I was looking for fame when I dared to bring up this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Heritage Radio 101.7 FM, 12 minutes before 8 o'clock. You're listening to State of the Nation on Heritage Radio 101.7 FM. Two questions to you, Mr. Maharaj. Tell me about your practice.
The legal practice.
Legal practice, yes.
What I can say, it has diminished immensely. I think the work at the union has really taken up a lot of time, including being second vice president of NATOC. But what I have done, I have attorneys at law who basically handle the legal practice. I myself do not really have much time to do that anymore. But I'm still engaged in a few matters in order to ensure that I'm always there. And understanding as the law continues to develop.
When you can, you look forward to going to court?
I do. Sometimes, if I have the time, I would even go and sit. I have been in court on a number of occasions, both as an attorney and as an observer. But when I have the time, I do. If even not to practice or advocate in the court, simply to observe.
Yes. There have been growing concerns about the level of legal representation, not the academic or the ability to defend clients, but matters of values, of ethics, and so on in the profession. That's a difficult question.
It is an extremely difficult question. I would not want to comment on that at this point in time. What I would say is that for my own self, I have always adhered to the principles of my own subjective morality. I follow a particular pathway, and I seek to serve the interests of those who I am engaged with.
Yes. What are some of the issues that concern you most about the state of our nation?
I think crime is it's an issue that I'm very concerned with, and I gather here we are speaking of issues from a holistic perspective, not details.
That's right.
Crime is something I think we need to address as fast as possible. It's very difficult to do so because of the different circumstances we are all involved in, but that is a major issue on my mind at this point in time.
Yes. And any recommendations how we might be able to look at things differently?
Well, I think we need to start from a holistic perspective. It's not only about punishment, it's also about the home environment, it's about the family structure, it's about a number of different factors. If we begin to engage the crime as something we need to address, we need to engage it from different aspects, family, home,
Yes.
Different. We need to look at it in different ways.
Yes. I spent a few days in the Bahamas. Now, I didn't go. There are many islands, 700 plus, but Grand Bahama. Didn't go too far away from the airport. Went to a resort area. Went to. We actually. My family and I went to a family wedding and just had such a wonderful experience and feeling about the place, beginning with the brand new airport that really has been laid out to welcome passengers to and from, and the facilities and the gentility of the people. There were many things. Now, there were no slums on the way to the resort area, but I can't say that I've seen the island or even read the papers, or there were so many activities. But there was a feeling, and yesterday I returned a call from the Spanish ambassador, and I apologized to him, saying, well, I wasn't able to call you back because I was in the Bahamas. And he says, oh, one of the most beautiful places in the Caribbean. I'm always excited when people identify islands of the Caribbean, but in particular Trinidad and Tobago. But we seem to be so overwhelmed by negatives and problems in the society, debilitating and affecting our development in the society.
I think to a very large extent, one of the major factors for this, and it's my personal point of view, is that we take a lot of things for granted, and in so doing we allow many things to slide by. I don't know if it's because as a people we have never really had to maybe shed blood for our independence, so as to get a greater understanding of patriotism and nationalism and duty to country. We allow so many things to go by. We are sometimes so laid back that I think when we behave in such a manner, it allows for the breakdown of discipline, it allows for the breakdown of morality and ethics. And we need to find some way to instill in our young children a sense of country and nationhood.
You have young children?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No. I don't.
Yeah, not yet.
Not yet. No.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. It was very kind
a pleasure.
of you
It was a
taking
pleasure.
time.
Thank you very much.
And our greetings to all your colleagues, Mr. Tiwari and Mr. Jaglal.
Yes.
And
they are doing what they have to do.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hanuman Singh.
Yes. Do you have any canes at Rienzi?
No, we don't. No.
Shouldn't you?
No, we should have, yes. And it's an idea that I will take back immediately.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Nirvan Maharaj, the President General of the All Trinidad General Workers Trade Union and the second Vice President of the National Trade Union Center.